how does emotional intelligence, play
Mm-hmm.
a pivotal role in decision making,
Mm-hmm.
and what are some of the misconceptions around this?
So, emotional intelligence, and I sometimes just call it human intelligence as opposed to artificial intelligence. And so,
Mm-hmm,
emotional intelligence is our ability to know and understand ourselves better and how and what our needs are and how we act in certain scenarios, especially in scenarios where we come into the same space with other people. And understanding ourselves then allows us to then understand other people and do what we call sometimes see things from their perspective, put ourselves in their shoes. And then what we want to do is to come to that space where we are understanding people like from human to human, right?
mm-hmm,
Yes,
mm-hmm.
this is me. Yes, this is you. We might be different in our approach or our perception of something, but I want to understand you so we can come to the middle to achieve something that we're looking to achieve. So it's our ability to understand ourselves and understand our others, and then be able to translate this into interacting with people in a way that brings more harmony into situations. It's like empathy could come in the work in the emotional intelligence scenario, and empathy is again our ability to understand others and then find the right way to feel into the situation, make the right decision. So we're going from the heart, that's the feeling, into the situation, understanding ourselves and others, then we make the right decision, again, going up to the mind now and then back to the heart. And then we take the action. And normally we take the action with the body, right? So about combining all aspects to make things work.
And there's one particular school of thoughts that
Mm-hmm.
often connect emotional troubles or not being that emotionally intelligent, even with our
Mm-hmm.
past traumas or past life traumas. And I believe Akashic records can help us,
Mm-hmm.
deal with these past traumas or past life traumas out there.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you just help us navigate this through?
So emotions come on a scale, right? There are emotions that we're not comfortable with, and then there are emotions that we are comfortable with. And if you look at Dr. David Hopkins' kind of emotional scale, I think some people call it emotional scale of consciousness. It talks about the various emotions all the way from, say, guilt and shame, which are at the bottom and they're rated about 20 or 40, all the way up to say 400, where we talk about courage, and then we go up to 500, which we talk about love, and then we go up to to the bigger, the thousands, which we talk about enlightenment, right? So we know the emotions that don't make us feel right. And normally when we don't feel right, it means something is not right, we're not happy. I think, coming back directly to your question, the reason why emotions can really hold us back is because we attach ourselves to a trauma, an emotion that happened today that is not necessarily us, is a situation that caused the trauma, right? And then somehow our bodies just take it in, we download it into our system, into our DNAs, and it gets stuck there. And we carry on with our lives thinking that that emotion and us are the same. And so we try to interpret every other scenario that comes to us with that emotion, that traumatic incident. And that is what causes that trauma and that trigger. You see people say, oh, they're emotionally triggered. It's
Mm-hmm,
that. And I think fundamentally it's our inability to understand that we are not the emotion. And when we learn how to distance ourselves or how to separate our true selves from an incident that happened, we are able to then heal that or transmute that emotion and let it belong to where it belongs so we can move forward with the true us, which is devoid of that traumatic emotion. So the reason why people go through life having or staying in a state of emotion that is not very conducive to their own happiness, like
mm-hmm,
anxiety, for instance, it is because of that. They are not able to separate themselves from an emotion or a traumatic event that happened. And so as we all learn the importance of understanding who we are, and we are in the fact that we are true love, we are pure love. And yes, we will experience that spectrum of emotions, but so long as we can always choose to come back to the point of acceptance and the point of courage, which are higher on the emotional scale, then we can climb up into that true state of love and joy and look at things from that sense, that lens. It's not to say that when we feel sad, we should just quickly just say, I don't want to feel sad, so I'm just going to not feel sad, because it doesn't happen that way. And again, that's where acceptance comes into the fore. Sometimes we also have to learn something. That's why an incident happened. So yes, I'm feeling sad because of this scenario. What is it trying to tell me? And that opportunity to sit with it, to understand it, and then from there choose that acceptance and say, okay, I choose not to feel sad anymore. I know my true self is, courage. I know my true self is love. And even if I can't choose love at the moment because I'm really, really sad, I choose acceptance and courage, and I can move up to where I need to be. Within the Akashic records, yes, we do find a lot of information about this. For instance, people may come to an Akashic records consultation with, things that are happening in their lives that they need answers to. They've tried everything, they don't seem to be getting past it. And one of two or three things could happen. Sometimes that is due to something that happened in this lifetime, and we need to, shed the light. The Akashic records information brings forth the light that needs to be shown on that particular traumatic event or situation or scenario, or the root cause of that particular incident. And that helps people to understand it. And sometimes that understanding can transmute that for them, and they can move from that emotional state that they don't want to a better state that they prefer, that we are meant to be in. Sometimes the root cause of a situation could also be from a past life. And so then again, that scenario will be brought forward, so we understand the root cause of it, and we do get given the opportunity to go and transmute that so that we can write it back into this life in a way that we want. So those are some of the things. And then we get told, some of the lessons that we need to learn around that particular scenario so we can move forward in confidence. But we can always create the life that we want. And understanding emotions and knowing that we are not our emotions is always a crucial thing.
Thanks a lot for that complete elaborate understanding on the concept of Akashic records and how it impacts the emotions and the past life. Maggie, would it be possible to share a personal experience with Akashic records that helped you turn your life around or helped you find answers to some of the questions that were really bothering you?
Yes, thank you. So just to quickly define the Akashic records, so the Akashic records, for anyone who is not fully aware of what it is so we can call it the database of human and universal consciousness. Or we, on the spiritual level, we can also say is information about us and the universe. And this information is recorded from the time we come into being. So from the past into the present and potential future paths. And it's all stored in the DNA of the universe, or in the universal realm. And our own personal Akashic records is information that is also stored in our own DNA. So that's the Akashic records. And sometimes we get, challenged with situations, and we need to understand why that is happening. And when we go into the Akashic records, we are able to then receive this information and understand why that is happening. But we also get given information on how to translate or how to change this and then live our best life. The Akashic records work is all about living our best life now, which is what we're talking about. So my personal experience, so the Akashic records work found me at a time that I would say I was kind of in a pretty low state, because it was in between being employed and being self-employed. I think there was that push on my heart to move into being self-employed. And sometimes you just don't want to jump into the unknown. You don't know how you're going to survive, coming back to the money and everything else, right? And so I was working with a company, and even though previously everything I used to do used to give me really, really good, fantastic results, I got to a stage where everything I was doing, even though I was using all the tools, I wasn't getting the results right and coming back to the targets and everything. I was just not getting the results. I was digging deeper, doing everything I used to do that used to give me the results, and I wasn't getting it. So it was a big wake up call for me, which led me to go deeper and deeper into my own self development, doing more of my meditations and everything. And then one morning, as I was coming out of meditation, all I could hear was the word Akasha, ringing in my ears. And I didn't know what it was. And I went into Google, and then I realized it was connected to the Akashic records. And one thing led to the other. But coming back to your question, and so from that and understanding the Akashic records, I was able to then go into a meditative state. I found a book online called How to Read Your Akashic Records, and I was able to use it to access my own records. But some of the information I was receiving at that time was that the Akashic records was part of the roadmap for the business that I was about to set up. And I was resisting this information, firstly, because I was very used to working in the corporate world, or at least with business leaders or business
Mm-hmm.
owners, SME managers. And I felt that the Akashic Records was very much out there, very kind of nebulous, very spiritual. And I didn't see how I
Mm-hmm.
could
Mm-hmm.
fit that into my normal kind of business consulting advisory roles. And so I was resisting the idea, but one thing led to the other again. Again, we are always divinely guided. We are always guided. So I came across a guy who was being interviewed on YouTube. And I was like, that is the guy. He had been working with the Akashic Records, and I got in touch with him. And he did a consultation for me, confirmed everything that I was seeing. And so I was like, well, maybe I have to pay attention. And so I went ahead, and then I got certified in the Akashic records to add to whatever else I had going on, so that I can access the records for myself, for other people, for businesses, and for collective consciousness in terms of groups of people. I can also do it for animals and houses and buildings and things like that. So one thing that it really helped me from that perspective is then being able to weave that into my business, and then being able to support others as well, because people ask these deep questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the reasons why the business became not just a business consulting firm or business mentoring firm, but also business and personal growth. And I think, again, the personal growth is very important. And as I use the Akashic records to go deeper, understanding who I am, understanding some of the skills, some of the dormant abilities connected to my purpose that I had not been using. Going into the Akashic records, understanding these things helps me then apply it back into life, into my own personal life, into the life of my loved ones, and also into the life of my business and my clients. And it has been phenomenal in terms of the number of people who are being drawn to me,
Mm-hmm.
to ask some of these deeper questions to get answers for their personal lives as well as their business or professional lives.
Akashic records, the learnings that we get, or the messages that we are getting, the
Mm-hmm,
different form of knowledge that we get when you are doing anybody's Akashic record reading. How
mm-hmm,
can the insights gained from that exercise or during in
mm-hmm,
that state be applied by any person practically in their daily
mm-hmm,
lives? How
mm-hmm.
can they not really achieve it?
Yeah, so the information can be very, very practical.
Mm-hmm.
What happens is, if you can imagine it as like a conversation between you and your higher self, and your higher self, I'll say. So you ask the question like, what is the root cause of this issue? What are my resources to resolve it? How can I then move on to live my happier state, right? And so it's all about the questioning. But if you ask that right question, the questions that are deep enough, and you are open to it and you trust it, you will receive incredible answers. So for instance,
Mm-hmm.
someone comes and asks a question about what is the root cause of this disagreement between myself and this person in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this
Mm-hmm.
could be kind of a personal relationship, or it could be maybe a relationship between you and your boss or whatever, because we are all souls on a journey, right? And
Yeah.
someone really described the Akashic records as the soul's journey through the collective consciousness. And so you may have, so you ask the question, what's the root cause of it? And you may be given the root cause of it. Maybe you have journeyed with this person before, and you had things that you needed to come and resolve, and that's why you have come together again, you found each other again, and you are trying to resolve this issue. And so we give you, so the information comes with the root cause of it, and then how to resolve it, and the practical ways of resolving it. And then it's up to you to then resolve it. Sometimes there are soul contracts involved, and again, you will be giving guidance in terms of how to remove that soul contract and write a new one to replace that. And yeah, and those are really incredible scenarios. And other times I take people through kind of a mentoring session after the Akashic records, if the information is so profound
Mm-hmm.
and they are not able to directly translate it into day-to-day living. So an
Mm-hmm.
example would be, as people go on their growth journeys, maybe another aspect of their own core purpose is awakening within them. Maybe they're starting to develop their abilities to see things differently. Maybe they feel this urge to maybe go and run some retreats. Maybe they feel this urge to show people how to overcome this particular challenge in their lives because they have gone through that challenge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So an Akashic section will reveal the root cause of that and say, you have had this ability before, you have done it before, and that ability is coming back to you because that's what the world needs now, and that's what you need now as the next phase, as the next evolving state of your purpose, for instance. And so that information will come, but for a lot of people, they still don't know the next step to take, right? Even though they may be given that. And so I could then do like a mentoring session with them to help them understand where they are now, maybe what they're doing on a day-to-day, how to weave this new next level purpose into their day-to-day with a view to transitioning fully. So they may be fully employed somewhere else, but they can use this as a new passion that is coming to them, and then weave that into their life, into a stage where they can fully transition into the next core phase of their purpose, if that's what they're looking to do. So those are some of the examples. Hope that helps.
No, sure, surely these are really informative. Something I would like to understand because you talked about, some of the soul's purpose out there, soul's
Yeah.
contracts, and those
Mm-hmm.
things. I do
Yes.
have few questions on the purpose, but I will hold on to that thought. But
Mm-hmm.
the final question I would like to ask on Akashic records is
Mm-hmm.
there are people, who continuously see a pattern happening with different individuals in their lives. They would
Yes.
have friendships or bonds being created as deep as
Mm-hmm.
possible. But
Mm-hmm.
then suddenly those bonds are fractured in a manner which
Yes.
cannot be repaired.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
once those bonds were in position, they were like two bodies, one soul,
Yes.
and both
Yes.
in a platonic and non-platonic manner as well out there. Or it could be just
Yes.
two different friends, not to be,
Mm-hmm.
always that romantic friend, but
Mm-hmm.
friendships or different form of relationships out there. So,
Yes.
is there any past life karma that's, coming back and back again
Mm-hmm.
and again?
Mm-hmm.
Or is there a message that's being tried to deliver to that individual who is
Yes.
seeing this pattern his or her own life?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So your question has twofold. So the first part is about repeated patterns, and the second part would be kind of the notion of karma. So I'll try and kind of explain both of them. So repeated patterns are when we've, just like you described, you feel like we are in a hamster wheel. Everything is fine, and then the relationship changed, and then once it changes completely. And then that relationship ends, and then we meet another person, and it starts really nice, and then it goes to another stage, which is very similar to the previous one, although it's a different person, right? So it means that you are repeating this pattern, and this pattern is trying to show you something. There is a learning there that needs to be done within yourself for you to 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 then move to the next level of your own soul's evolution. So yes, sometimes, most of the time, there is a root cause of this in a past life, with these kind of repeated
Hmm.
patterns. It could be something you chose to come and learn as well. So you might have said, I want to go into this world this time, and the key lesson that I want to learn is how to do this, how to overcome relationship issues. And so because of that, it will keep playing until you really kind of upgrade yourself and learn how to overcome these issues. But the good thing with the Akashic records is, again, it shows you the root cause of it, how to overcome it. And then most of the time, if you have learned the lessons enough, then it could be that, if someone is in your life that is repeating this pattern, they haven't learned it yet, their lesson yet, but you have completed your lesson, then you get given the opportunity to release that soul contract with that person so that you can move on. But most of the time, these repeated patterns are there. And as soon as we are able to spot the pattern and say we don't want it anymore, doors open for us to resolve it so we don't repeat that pattern, and then we move on to another stage. So that's that. The other part, which is all about the notion of karma, is like this. So I always say karma is a neutral word. So karma is not necessarily you do something bad and something bad happens to you. Karma can also be good. You do something good and something happens to you. But karma itself is a neutral word, which means that the soul can choose to go through certain patterns to add to their own lives experiences or their own soul's evolutionary experiences. And so you might find that someone may have lived the life of a very rich person. Maybe so they may have past lives of being really rich. And then they might say, well, in my next life, I want to experience what it's like to be a pauper. So not to have all the material wealth. So they may be very rich in spirit, but they will not have the material wealth. But that is a choice by the soul to experience that. And so sometimes they will be in scenarios with people, or scenarios that will help them go deeper into what it's really like to live a life that is in that state, and they are just adding that purpose experience, or, presumably poor life experience, to their soul's, learnings, in terms of, yes, I can be rich, but now I want to experience what it's like to be poor, and I want to bring those together. Another element of the karmic scenarios related to the repeated pattern would be where you have this, karmic scenario with someone. You had a big disagreement in the past, and you tried to resolve it, and it did not happen, or you did it as much as you can in that existence, and you've decided to come here and try and complete that, or try and carry on with that journey. And so again, you will be brought into contact with this person to live that life, and most of the time you will repeat exactly what happened in the past in order to see how you can
Hmm.
resolve it.
Hmm.
And so again, that those are scenarios that happens. Yeah. And then of course there is the other side, where you meet someone and everything is so perfect. You feel like you've known this person all your life. You couldn't say a bad word to them. They couldn't say a bad word to you. And life is so cozy. Again, these are sometimes, souls that have met in the past, and they decided to come on and, experience that richness of their soul's connection here in this lifetime as well.